Tyler Perry built an empire off family comedies, faith-based films, and the Medea character that made him a household name. But behind the success, there's a side of Perry the public rarely sees, and now Cat Williams and Terrence Howard are calling it out. Both men claim there's a darker system in Hollywood, one that pressures black actors into uncomfortable roles, silences those who speak up, and protects powerful names behind the scenes. And according to them, Tyler Perry has played a major part in that system. They're not just speaking from opinion, they've lived it. From roles they were pushed to accept, to career backlash for saying no, to disturbing patterns involving lawsuits and power abuse, Cat and Terrence say this goes far beyond Hollywood politics. And now, with more allegations surfacing and deeper connections coming to light, the silence around Perry's legacy is starting to crack. This isn't about tearing someone down, it's about asking what it really costs to succeed in an industry built on image, and who's been protected at the expense of others. For years, comedians and actors have whispered about an unwritten rule in Hollywood. If you're a black man trying to break into the mainstream, at some point, you're expected to wear a dress. It's been brushed off as comedy tradition, but Cat Williams and Terrence Howard believe it's something else, something more calculated. They claim it's part of a system designed to slowly chip away at how black masculinity is portrayed on screen. Cat has said, flat out, that almost every major black male actor has been put in a dress at some point, either for laughs, range, or to test how far they're willing to go to stay relevant. And for those who refuse, there's a price. Terrence Howard says he's paid it. According to him, the industry slapped him with a difficult-to-work-with label after he refused to wear a dress for a role. He didn't just say no, he walked away, knowing full well that declining could close doors. But to him, it wasn't about ego or rebellion. It was about holding the line on how black men are used and portrayed in the business. He's not alone. Cat Williams, Dave Chappelle, and others have echoed the same concern. This isn't about artistic freedom, it's about control. It's about a system that punishes those who say no and rewards those who play along, no matter how degrading the role might be. Terrence says the roles being offered weren't just comedy, they were bait. And the second he stopped accepting them, he stopped getting calls. It wasn't just that he was hard to work with, it's that he wouldn't play the game. But as it turns out, refusing to play the game would come with more than just lost roles. It would open the door to a series of allegations, lawsuits, and broken trust that would shake the image of Tyler Perry himself. Terrence Howard didn't just pass on one role, he walked away from some of the biggest opportunities of his career. He revealed that he turned down the chance to play Smokey Robinson in a biopic, calling it one of his biggest regrets. But it wasn't just about the part, it was about what the role required. Around the same time, he also backed out of playing Marvin Gaye in another major project, again, not because of money or scheduling, but because of the creative direction. According to Terrence, the filmmakers wanted to explore rumors about Marvin Gaye's personal life, rumors Terrence said he couldn't relate to or feel comfortable portraying on screen. He even told Bill Maher in a podcast interview that he'd rather cut his lips off than kiss a man in a scene. That line alone sent shockwaves through social media. Howard said he wasn't trying to be offensive, he was just being honest. He felt the industry was asking him to perform roles that didn't reflect who he was or what he believed in. And when he pushed back, he didn't just get ignored, he got blacklisted. The offers slowed down, the meetings stopped. Studios quietly labeled him as difficult. Not for being late, not for being unprofessional, but because he said no. Terrence believes the industry punishes men like him for not going along with the agenda and rewards those who do. And it's not just about acting anymore, it's about integrity, identity, and pressure from the top. What makes his story even more unsettling is that it mirrors what Cat Williams has been saying for years, that when you refuse to play a certain kind of game in Hollywood, especially as a black actor, you don't just get sidelined, you get erased. But if Hollywood tried to erase Terrence, they forgot one thing: he's still talking. And what he revealed next, it didn't involve rumors, it involved receipts. In June 2024, a lawsuit dropped that sent shockwaves through Hollywood. Actor Dixon filed a $260 million claim against Tyler Perry, accusing him of creating a hostile, controlling, and deeply inappropriate work environment. And this wasn't just a vague accusation, it was filled with specific dates, events, and disturbing details that painted a very different picture of the media mogul behind the Medea empire. Dixon claimed that Perry used his power and influence not just to offer opportunities, but to allegedly manipulate those opportunities into personal leverage. According to the lawsuit, Perry promised career-boosting roles and even offered to produce Dixon's pilot project. But when Dixon didn't reciprocate Perry's alleged romantic interest, things took a sinister turn. The lawsuit states that Perry began retaliating. Flirtatious texts allegedly turned into veiled threats. Career promises faded. And when Dixon finally landed a role on Perry's show The Oval, the script suddenly changed. His character Dale was shot 4 times in the chest by the end of the season. Dixon said it wasn't just fiction, it was Perry sending a message. What followed, according to Dixon, was months of stress, anxiety, and disturbing encounters. He alleges that Perry invited him to his home under the guise of discussing a project, but instead made aggressive, unwanted advances, twice. Once in January 2020, and again during a cast trip to the Bahamas. Dixon says he was later diagnosed with PTSD and prescribed Zoloft for anxiety and depression stemming from the ordeal. Even after trying to distance himself by moving to California, Dixon said Perry's team continued to apply pressure. Fixers allegedly offered raises and promised to greenlight his pilot in exchange for silence, but Dixon walked away, and then he went public. Now, he's demanding a jury trial and seeking $260 million in damages. Perry's legal team quickly denied the claims, calling it all a scam. But the story didn't go away. In fact, it got louder. Because what Derek Dixon described didn't feel like a one-time incident. It felt like a pattern, and others were already starting to say the same. Not long before Derek Dixon came forward, another actor told a strikingly similar story, Christian Keyes. Though he never named names, many believe the powerful Hollywood figure he described was none other than Tyler Perry. In a December 2023 Instagram Live, Keyes, who had worked closely with Perry on several projects, claimed he had been sexually harassed by a powerful man in the industry. He spoke about being invited to stay over at this man's house after a night of drinking. He was told it would be safe, but then said the man allegedly tried to climb into bed with him while he was half asleep and intoxicated. Keyes described feeling violated, shocked, and powerless. But even after the alleged incident, he kept working with this individual. Why? Because, like many others in Hollywood, he feared that speaking out would end his career. And when he finally did go public, albeit anonymously, he said he was bullied into deleting the video. But by then, it had already spread. Social media lit up with speculation. Users pointed out that the story matched details from Dixon's lawsuit almost perfectly. The manipulation, the false promises, the pressure to stay silent. Both men had worked closely with Perry. Both had allegedly been lured in with career opportunities, only to face personal violations and professional threats. And both eventually broke away, but only after losing nearly everything. As word spread, screenshots of Keyes being kissed on the cheek by other actors were resurfaced online, used to discredit him, mock him, and question his story, but many saw through that. To them, this wasn't about Keyes' preferences, it was about power, and what happens when someone in control uses their position to push boundaries that should never be crossed. Now, with 2 separate stories pointing to the same man, the whispers around Tyler Perry were growing into a roar, and the next revelation didn't come from a victim, but from someone once considered his close friend. Before the lawsuits and public allegations, there was another incident that raised eyebrows, but quietly faded from headlines. In 2014, Tyler Perry filed a restraining order against a man named Joshua Soule, a former production assistant who had once worked closely with him. According to Perry, Soule broke into his Atlanta studio by disabling alarms, crawling through ceiling panels, and locking himself in an office. The entire building had to be evacuated, and it took law enforcement 4 hours to get him out. Perry painted the incident as a dangerous intrusion by a mentally unstable employee. But once the restraining order was filed and Soule was arrested, the story didn't end. It got more complicated. Rumors quickly surfaced that Perry and Soule had been. involved in a personal relationship and that the break-in wasn't random, it was emotional. Some insiders claimed the two had a falling out, and that Soul's behavior stemmed from deeper personal issues with Perry, not just professional frustration. Soul didn't stay silent. He fired back with a $10 million lawsuit, claiming that he had been harassed while working under Perry's supervision. According to his legal filings, he was repeatedly called inappropriate names, received flirtatious messages, and was made to feel uncomfortable by a superior. When he brought these concerns to Perry directly, he alleged nothing was done. Then things got even messier. Soul claimed Perry went on Facebook and labeled him mentally disturbed, damaging his reputation and sabotaging his future in the industry. In his countersuit, he accused Perry of emotional manipulation, retaliation, and creating a toxic work environment. To many, the Soul incident seemed like an isolated event at the time, until the stories from Derek Dixon and Christian Keys began to surface. That's when people started connecting the dots. 3 different men, 3 eerily similar stories, all tied to the same powerful figure, and just when the public started paying attention, something strange happened. An entire episode of a popular animated series disappeared without explanation. In 2008, the hit animated series The Boondocks aired an episode titled Pause, a satire that many fans believed was aimed directly at Tyler Perry. The character Winston Jerome, a flamboyant playwright and actor who built a cult-like following around religious-themed stage plays, bore an uncanny resemblance to Perry and his Medea persona. The episode mocked not only the creative choices, but hinted at manipulation, hypocrisy, and control behind the scenes. The satire was bold, biting, and unmistakable, and then it vanished. Shortly after airing, the episode was pulled from rotation. Adult Swim never gave a clear reason, but rumors spread fast. Insiders alleged that Perry was furious about the portrayal and demanded the network pull the episode. Some even claimed he threatened legal action or used his influence to get it wiped quietly. Though Perry denied trying to silence the show, the fact remains, Pause was scrubbed and the controversy quietly buried. To critics, this was more than a cartoon being pulled. It was a warning shot, a signal that even public mockery of Perry came with consequences. And looking back now, that episode feels less like a joke and more like a warning of things to come. It portrayed a powerful black filmmaker who hid behind religion and positive messaging while allegedly manipulating those closest to him. Years later, the real-life stories lining up beside that caricature make it harder to dismiss the episode as just satire. The fact that it was so quickly removed only raised more suspicion. Why pull it if it wasn't close to the truth? And as more people started digging into Perry's past, it wasn't a cartoon character they found. It was a growing trail of real-life accusations. But the next twist wouldn't come from inside Hollywood. It came from the outside, connected to an even bigger scandal already threatening to bring down multiple celebrities. Just when it seemed the noise around Tyler Perry couldn't get any louder, his name quietly slipped into the background of another major controversy, Diddy's. As federal investigations ramped up against Sean Diddy Combs, former bodyguard Gene Deal stepped into the spotlight with bold claims about what really went down at Diddy's infamous house parties. According to Deal, these weren't just wild nights. They were highly orchestrated events involving celebrities, influencers, and hidden cameras, and what he hinted at next sent shockwaves across social media. He suggested that Tyler Perry may have been present at some of these events, possibly even caught on film. While Deal didn't accuse Perry directly of wrongdoing, the implication was clear. If footage from those parties ever surfaces, and insiders say it might, it could pull multiple powerful men into the scandal, including Perry. For years, the whispers were that Diddy's parties were a front, a grooming ground, a place where favors were exchanged and secrets buried. Now, with investigators digging, some of those secrets may finally be coming to light, and Perry's calm silence isn't helping his image. The more he avoids the conversation, the more it looks like he has something to hide. These connections also raise deeper questions. Were these parties just social events, or were they used to compromise and control people in the industry? Some speculate that what starts as a casual invitation turns into something darker, something people can't walk away from without consequences. And Perry's name being linked to it, even loosely, adds serious weight to the ongoing questions about his reputation. What's even more disturbing is how many names are suddenly surfacing. As the Diddy case heats up, old videos, texts, and testimonies are being re-examined. People are wondering, who else knew? Who stayed quiet? And who played a role? If even part of what Gene Deal claims is true, Perry's clean-cut image could be the next to collapse. Long before lawsuits and scandals made headlines, Tyler Perry was already under fire, but this time from his peers. Renowned filmmaker Spike Lee publicly criticized Perry's work, calling it coonery and buffoonery. Lee argued that the characters Perry created, especially the Medea persona, relied too heavily on outdated stereotypes that did more harm than good. For Lee, it wasn't just comedy, it was a step backward for black representation. Perry dismissed the critique, claiming Lee was being elitist and disconnected from the audience Perry served. But even that pushback hinted at deeper tension between Perry and the very gatekeepers of black Hollywood. Then there's Oprah. Once Perry's strongest supporter, she helped him launch the haves and the have-nots on her own network and praised him as a creative force. But over time, even their relationship reportedly cooled. Behind closed doors, sources say Oprah began questioning Perry's creative control, noting that he refused to bring on experienced writers or collaborators. The friction led to speculation that Perry's ego and his need to control every aspect of his projects was straining even his most powerful friendships. To some, Perry's empire represents black excellence and self-made success. To others, it's a cautionary tale about unchecked power and the price of silence. Because while Perry publicly preaches faith, family, and empowerment, the allegations forming around him suggest a much darker reality behind the scenes, one where manipulation, retaliation, and control take priority over community and care. What's worse, many now believe that those around him either looked the other way or helped protect the illusion. Whether out of loyalty, fear, or financial interest, Perry's inner circle has remained quiet, even as more people step forward with disturbing claims. But with his name now tangled in bigger investigations and more connections being exposed, the silence from his allies is starting to sound a lot like complicity, and that leads. As to the bigger question, was Tyler Perry just protecting himself, or helping protect something much larger? Tyler Perry's journey from homeless playwright to billionaire mogul has been hailed as one of the greatest success stories in entertainment. He built an empire on faith-based messaging, family values, and the idea that anyone, no matter how broken, could rise again. But now, the image he spent decades cultivating is under fire, not just from critics or trolls, but from actors, insiders, and former collaborators who say the truth has been buried for too long. Cat Williams and Terrence Howard didn't just come forward to air grievances. They came to warn us about the roles they were pressured to take, the silence they were expected to keep, and the price they paid when they said no. For years, they were brushed off as bitter or crazy. But now, with lawsuits, testimonies, and new investigations surfacing, it's clear they weren't lying. They were just early. And if the rumors tying Perry to Diddy's inner circle turn out to be true, the fallout could be even bigger. Because this isn't just about one man's misconduct. It's about an entire system, one that grooms silence, rewards loyalty, and crushes anyone who steps out of line. In an industry where image is everything, what happens when the mask starts to slip? How many careers were destroyed behind closed doors? How many warnings were ignored because the messenger didn't fit the narrative? As the walls close in, one thing is becoming harder to deny. Perry's empire may have been built on more than just hard work and hustle. It may have required silence, compliance, and the erasure of anyone who wouldn't play along. Hollywood loves a redemption arc. But before there's redemption, there has to be truth, and for the first time, it seems like that truth is finally being heard.